My name's Sacha Fedorovsky. I'm a mindset and stress transformation coach. So today the topic that I'm going to be talking about is changing your relationship to stress in order to overcome it. And what is the point of trying to manage stress or trying to overcome stress? This whole group is about happiness, but what I believe is that we all have happiness available within us. We're all naturally born to have this feeling. It's not something we have to go out and seek. It's not something we need to go out and find. We just need to remove the barriers. And stress right now in our society, and it has been for a few years, has been a big barrier for allowing happiness in. So we don't need to fight stress. We don't need to battle it. The first step is actually just to change our relationship to stress, to understand it and to understand why a lot of stress management tools that you may have previously used in the past, or previous coping mechanisms that we used in the past haven't worked with stress management. Okay, so I can see a few people coming in. I am happy to answer any questions at the end of this talk. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat box. Hi, Jody, thanks for checking in. If you have any questions around stress, around mindset, or even any personal topics, if you're happy to share them, we can cover them in the last 15 minutes. So save your questions or leave them in the comment box, and if we don't cover them in this talk, just feel free to message me either on my Instagram or on LinkedIn, and we can go further into this conversation. So let's get back to stress and changing our relationship to stress in order to overcome it. Now, why do we want to change our relationship to stress? It's because all the tools and strategies that we've been using to manage stress in the past haven't worked. And it's nothing to feel bad about. If people are telling you, you should go out for a run to deal with your stress, if you should breathe, if you should try yoga and meditation, understand that these things, in the way that they've been given to us, they're just topical treatments. They're just things to relieve the pain for a short time, but most of these tools don't work long term. Reason being for this is that all these feel-good strategies, they don't deal with the core problem. It's like having a sore tooth and taking a Panadol to relieve the pain. It feels good for a short time, you forget about the problem, but if you keep taking too many Panadols to relieve the pain, you're actually not going to the core of the problem. You're not going to see a dentist, and you're not realizing that the tooth might be rotten or that there might be an infection. And if you take too many Panadols, it's going to start harming you, and it will also stop you from dealing with the issue that you have going on with your tooth. So stress management is the same. If we keep resolving our tension and trying to put a sort of a band-aid over this negative feeling or this psychological tension, we'll never get to the root cause. So we will go through life running from our stress and battling it instead of just dealing with the core problem. So this takes me to the second point, and it's the reasons behind your daily stress. So now that we've acknowledged that a lot of modalities and a lot of the things we do that actually help with the symptoms, they stop the pain for a while, but they don't help stress long term. So the next step is self-awareness and understanding that we're not stressed for the reasons we think we are. The daily reasons, that you're stressed, whether it's, managing your finances, your relationships, work, all those reasons actually serve a purpose in our ego. And that purpose is to keep us from the things that are meaningful to us, or the things that we, on an unconscious level, believe are too painful to deal with. So mild daily stress is actually a distraction. Even if it gets to the point of anxiety, it's all a distraction keeping us from what we really need to deal with. So once again, if we go back to a lot of the feel-good strategies, a lot of the things that deal with the mild stress, you know, we're just treating the symptoms. We're never getting to the core of the problem. So at this stage, we need to change our relationship to stress so that we're no longer treating the symptoms, but starting to get to the core and, you know, transforming our relationship with stress. So let's reframe what stress is and better understand it so we can actually stop fighting it and start to use it start to use this energy and transform it into something which is really positive and really functional. And in this way, by changing our relationship to stress, we begin to rise above it. We no longer have to fight it. So let's unpack what stress is. So stress is actually a tension, and tension is something we need in life. It's our creative life force, and we came into this world through a tension, through our mother and father coming together, as much as we don't like to think about that, and conceiving us, and here we are in this world. Some of the biggest breakthroughs have come through in science, in technology, because of tension, because people were not happy with the status quo. They weren't feeling good about the current reality, about the scenario. So there was a tension to create something more. And that's how we get these breakthroughs. And personal breakthroughs are exactly the same. So we need to hold this tension. So now we're starting to reframe our relationship with tension. It's no longer the enemy. So let me see what people are asking. I've got Julian on, so I'll just wave. So if you guys do have any questions, just leave a comment. I'm happy to answer them at the end. So getting back to tension and mismanaged tension, when we don't know how to deal with tension, when we're not educated, when we don't know what it is, and it's not our fault that we don't know what it is. It's not something we learn at school. It's very rare that we've been able to learn these things from our family, from society, but we need this tension in order to create in life. And society, the media, marketing is giving us all these strategies for resolving our tension. Just buy this and you'll feel good. Do this, you'll feel great. But it's not serving us. What we need to realize is that our tension, when managed properly, can be used into something functional. We can reframe it into, before it turns to stress, we can reframe it into excitement. Because in the early stages, stress and excitement have the same physiological, symptoms per se. But if we have this relationship with stress, as soon as we don't feel good or, we feel a little bit antsy, we want to resolve it. We want to go for a drink. We want to have a cigarette. We want to call that friend to keep us company, to keep us, from feeling lonely, or we want to go into overwork mode, overdoing mode, or even anger, having an outburst of anger. These are ways that we dysfunctionally manage this tension. So if we're able to change this relationship and to sit with the tension so it doesn't turn into stress, then we can utilize it as a creative energy and a creative force. So let me read some of the comments to see where everyone's going. So Natasha, I totally agree. Jody, society can cause our tension and then give us cheap options to overcome it. That's true, and that's something we need to realize. We now have the internet. We've got all these sources. We've got this platform. We've got different forms of education, ways that we can better understand ourselves. If we're simply allowing society, the media, even well-meaning family and friends to just give us information, we're not being discerning in what's coming in. And even if it's positive information, this all builds up. If we don't understand ourselves, if we don't understand, what it is we truly want inside, who we are, we don't know what's causing us stress. And stress is sometimes just this inability to understand ourselves. That's why doing something to make us feel better is just stopping us from actually, understanding ourselves better. So I'll just check the time because we're going to come to the next section soon. So if you guys do have any questions, I can try and answer them while I'm figuring out how to remove the comments from this post. Okay, so I've got a comment from Jody. Sometimes I work better under stress, tension, until a certain point. Yes, so that's a really good point, Jody. So changing your relationship to stress and using this tension for a functional purpose is not using it to run away from something. So a lot of people use stress as a way to produce more, to go harder. This often causes burnout because we're not actually using the tension to go towards something. We're actually using it to run away from something. So I've got another comment here. Yes, sometimes I feel I get more stuff done when I have high anxiety. I think we are a society of workaholics, and this is one of our problems, is that we almost glorify stress and being busy, and a lot of people put a lot of their internal stress related to their personal life, their own selves, into their work. So in a sense, it fuels their work. If there is a problem at home, what they do is they put it into their work. So what you're actually doing, you're resolving your tension. You are resolving the stress that you might have, in your childhood or in your personal life, and you're going out and you're resolving that tension by overworking. So in a sense, you're not actually putting it into something that, you're not putting it into a vision, you're not putting it into a goal. You're actually running away from the problems behind you. So it's a little bit of a distinction to understand this. But as I mentioned in the first part of the talk, we often don't know what it is that we're really stressed about. So when we're stressed about work, about deadlines, that's not usually the real thing that we're stressed about. That's why a lot of people can feel like they are working better under pressure, and almost they need that deadline, they need that anxiety to get them through. And this is no different to an addiction, to need that cigarette or that drink to get you through. Because it's not actually work that they're experiencing the psychological tension or stress with. It's with other aspects of their life. So hopefully that helps, Natasha and Jody. So I've got Natasha saying, yes, sometimes I feel I get more stuff done when I have high anxiety. Yep. Yeah, so there's a big distinction, and that's where self-awareness comes into play. The more we begin to understand ourselves, the more we get to know what it is that we love and get to know our ego, our limiting beliefs, the things that scare us, and our fear, the more we begin to understand what it is that's really causing us stress. Because on the surface, we will spend our whole lives battling and, having this ongoing battle, with things that we just don't care about, because we never go deeper. We never go and look what's underneath the iceberg, what lays underneath. So we're just, trying to fix all the symptoms. We're just battling the symptoms, and that's what our life becomes about. And I would call that a wasted life if we're constantly working with things, trying to fix things, trying to sort things that we care nothing about. So let's go to the next stage. This is this is all, if you've just joined in, this is all about changing your relationship with stress in order to overcome it. And the reason we want to go through this process of understanding stress, changing our relationship to stress, rather than just making ourselves feel better and resolving the tension, is because we want to allow more happiness in. Happiness is not something outside. It's not something we need to seek. We don't need to chase it. We just need to start removing the obstacles that don't allow it in. And stress is a big part of it. The reason most people have mild stress or daily stress is because they don't know what's going on below the iceberg of their thinking mind, of their subconscious, these deeper feelings. If you ask most people, especially busy people, working people that are trying to go forward in their life, they find very few adjectives to describe their emotions. So transforming your relationship with stress requires a little bit of courage. It requires a little bit of vulnerability, not necessarily with anyone else, but with yourself, so that you're able to really understand what is the thing that is really scaring you deep inside. What is the thing that you're using your daily stress for to keep you away from what's really meaningful to you? So the next step is understanding tension and actually just using it to your advantage. So that uncomfortable feeling that you get when you're stressed, it doesn't have to turn to psychological tension. It doesn't have to go to that level if we understand tension. And as I said before, we need this tension, we need this creative life force to create what we want. So, the next obvious step is to actually know what we want. Do you have a goal? Do you have a vision? Because if we don't have a path of least resistance for this tension, which could turn to stress energy, it goes everywhere. And it goes all over our life, and we're constantly stressed, we're chronically stressed, it affects our health, everything is crazy up here. But if we hold this tension and we have a path of least resistance, which we create by understanding where we are, what's going on for us, and creating a path to our goal or our bigger vision, something that's meaningful to us, we're able to use this tension in favor of that outcome or that goal. Because without a vision of something that we love, we're constantly just going to be battling all the things that we don't like, all the things that we don't want. So the tension energy has no path of least resistance to a vision or a goal. It just resolves, and it almost just, it spills out everywhere in every area of our life. And everything becomes stressful, not just the big things, but the little things become stressful. Can anyone relate to this? Could, just by listening to this now, is there anything for you that, has been stressing you in your daily life that you now almost think, well, how much does this mean to me? Is this really important? Or, what is really going on underneath the surface? Yes, awareness is everything. So awareness is really everything, because even if you do have goals, and it's usually we have two categories of people that I've dealt with, which is people who are very focused, they're very future orientated, they're very driven towards something, and all they have in mind is the vision. But the issue is that they don't know where they are. They don't know what's going on with them, and there is lacking of self-awareness. There's a drive to go in a direction, but they don't know where they are. So the path forward comes at a consequence, because their psychological tension might be so strong that by pushing forward, it results in a panic attack, in a disaster, in depression, because they haven't dealt with where they are. And then you've got another category of people that don't have a vision. They are just in their current reality. They are stuck in the past. They have anxiety about the future, but there is no vision. So there isn't enough real tension to allow that stress energy to resolve in, you know, in a goal or a vision, because they just don't have that. So the key to overcoming your stress long term, you know, obviously this is a process and a daily practice, you know, and, you know, it requires constant self-awareness. But even if you just do one thing, you're able to overcome your stress on a daily basis. So begin with understanding yourself, and I would start with journaling. So I can give you a tool in which you can overcome your psychological tension and your stress on a daily basis as it arises. So every day, this is an activity to practice holding the tension. So you're not resolving it in favor of stress, but to create what you want and what you'd love in life, the outcome that you want on a daily basis, is sitting with your tension. So as a beginner, I would definitely write it down. Write down what you're stressed about. Close your eyes and sit with it. Be with that uncomfortable feeling and speak to your stress. Have a conversation. Imagine your stress is a bully, you know, and what bullies do is they make you feel uncomfortable so that you do what they want for their purpose, for their entertainment. So if you imagine your stress as a bully, you need to confront it, because otherwise you are being pushed to do whatever the stress is telling you. And that's how you go about running around your life, doing things that mean nothing to you, but being pushed by this stress or anxiety. So sit with it, face the bully, you know, of stress and anxiety, and just speak to it. Write out, what do you want? You know, what is it that you're asking me? You know, what are you keeping me from seeing? Speak to it, and you will be amazed by the things that you come up with. And just like, you know, when you're young and you were, maybe even now, when you were scared of ghosts in the dark, when you just turn the light on, you realize that there's nothing there. And we need to do the same with our stress and anxiety. We cannot run away from it. Otherwise, it builds up over time. And as somebody commented that, you know, for a short time, stress helps them with work, but then at a certain point, it doesn't help anymore, because managing stress doesn't work long term. We need to change our relationship with it by going through these practices, by, you know, creating a new relationship with stress where we sit with it instead of run away from it and treat the symptoms, so that we can overcome it and actually put that precious energy into creating something that's meaningful to us. So I've got a comment here from Rachel. I'm very self-aware of what is causing my stress and anxiety. I'm using the life tools I've learned to get me through each day and removing things and people that aren't serving me anymore. Rachel, that's a great point, and I highly recommend for anyone, if you are in a situation which is obviously not serving you, you know, if it's friends or a workplace and it's something that's, you know, unsafe, obviously, and, you know, it's just becoming clear to you that it's no longer serving you, remove it. But there are certain relationships and there are certain circumstances and times in our life when we cannot just remove objects. We can't change the current reality at that moment as it is. So how do we deal with it? That, you know, that's where the stress heightens. That's when the psychological tension heightens. And we can use the same kind of tool, and that's sitting with it and looking inside, seeing what's inside us that's making us feel uncomfortable about that relationship. What is it, you know, and what's inside us that, you know, that is attracting this kind of thing? Because what I've often found with people that I work with is they go through the same cycle over and over again, whether it's leaving a job to go to a new job, to just recreate the same, you know, political or work environment, leaving one relationship to find one that's exactly the same. So in a sense, it's not always the scenarios and the things around you, but it's, you know, it's us that's the common denominator. And this comes back to self-awareness and being able to deal with tension, to manage tension, so that if we are in circumstances that are highly charged, that we're able to sit and be with the stress and use it to our advantage instead of allowing it to eat us up. So a very useful tool for overcoming psychological tension and stress is daily journaling, but journaling in a sense that we recognize what our stress really is, not just on a surface level, not just the daily to-do list, the kids, the finances, our health, all the things we need to do, but what at the core level is bothering us? What is it that we haven't acknowledged to ourselves that we want in life? What is it that we are, feeling guilty about? What is it that we're feeling not good enough? By acknowledging these things, we no longer have to run from them. And so all of the problems, all of the stress that, we are going through on a daily basis starts to dissolve because we're starting to address the core issue. So this is quite a process. It takes some time because it's sort of reprogramming how our mind looks at stress, how we look at our circumstances. It's changing the model of just, busily running around and reacting. So it's really changing our mindset and creating a shift in the way that we operate, which isn't reactive, but a way that we develop self-awareness by just looking at ourselves every single day before our to-do list, before even exercising, or all of the things that we need to do, even if it's waking up 30 minutes earlier, by just taking that time, taking that space to reframe our relationship with stress so that we can overcome it, so that we don't spend the day battling it. And what happens when we do this over time is we create a gap and we allow more happiness in, and we no longer have to try and manage stress. We just go directly to what it is, the outcome we want, what we love, and we have more space for joy. So if anyone has any questions now related to mindset, stress, or anxiety, or any of the points that I've covered about changing your relationships to stress in order to overcome it, let me know. So I'll just check if I've missed any comments so far. So this is so true. It's all about changing our relationship to stress. So thanks for joining me, guys. Thanks, Jody. And if there's no other questions at this moment, if you are watching the replay, do send me a message on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or Instagram. I'm happy to answer it for you and discuss any of these topics, because you never know, something that you're going through or that you're thinking about, you might feel alone in it, but you would be surprised the amount of people going through it. So I've got a question here. So how do we stop anxiety at the point when anxiety occurs? Okay, so if we're at the point where we're already in a state of heightened psychological tension, anxiety. So what anxiety actually is when we're not present and our mind is consumed in a future scenario that hasn't happened yet, and it's consumed in a worst case scenario. So that's anxiety. So this is why we need to reframe our relationship to these buzzwords, because what we need to do when our mind is consumed by a future moment and the worst case scenario of what hasn't happened yet is we need to come back to the present moments. We need to come back to the present moment and acknowledge where we are. From that point, if we're not able to keep ourselves there in the present moment, if we're not, practicing meditation daily, if we haven't done those practices previously, because obviously prevention is the best method. If we haven't done those practices, I'll give you a very, very profound and advanced way to deal with it, which you can do in a few moments. And try it for yourself, even if it's on something mild, so that when you get to this stage, it's something that's in your mind and you can access this tool straight away. So when you're in a heightened state of anxiety, take a moment, don't react, and close your eyes and take yourself to the absolute worst case scenario of this situation, because anxiety is a situation in the future which our mind is preoccupied in, and it's absolutely freaking out about what could happen, but it's teetering on the surface. So this tool is about taking yourself to the absolute worst case scenario mentally. So for example, you could have a very important meeting, a work meeting, and it's something that you're underprepared for, and you're starting to have this mass anxiety because everything is going wrong in your team. And when you're in that mode, you can't focus, you can't concentrate, because your mind isn't present. It's in the future worst case scenario, but you're not fully taking yourself there. That's why you're here, there, and everywhere. If you take a few moments to take yourself there, visualize yourself, imagine yourself, making a fool out of yourself at this meeting. Is that the worst case scenario? Okay, you don't get the deal. Is that the worst case scenario? If that's not the worst case scenario, you get fired from your job. Is that the worst case scenario? You have to tell your business partner that this happened. Is that the worst case scenario? So mentally take yourself to the absolute worst place. And just like, dealing with tension and, being stressed about things that aren't really what we're stressed about, we're keeping ourselves from what we fear. So if you just turn on the light, you'll realize that there's no ghosts in the dark. And anxiety and stress are the same. Once we face our absolute deepest fear, which we can take ourselves to in a few moments, once we've practiced this, you will notice that the feeling of stress and anxiety goes away in a moment. And that's all you need to do. So, give this a go and practice it a few times. You will find that the outcome is profound, and it will bring you back to the present moment. So I've got another question. Is that by working on mindfulness? So my definition of mindfulness, or how I've learned it, or how I've taught it, is about staying present. So it's very easy to tell someone to stay present, but when they're in heightened psychological tension, this becomes very challenging. That's why there are very useful tools and strategies that we can work with while we're there. But the very best thing is prevention. It takes a lot of practice to stop yourself in the moment that it's happening. It's almost easier to let it just happen, to let it happen at that point. It's almost lighter. So, and by being aware that it's happening in that moment, sometimes you can't stop it. Sometimes, you will scream at someone. Sometimes you will take that cigarette, and, sometimes, you might even have a breakdown. If you're able to stay self-aware, the next time that it happens, you will notice it as you're going into it. So this in itself is a mindfulness practice, just being aware of the patterns that we go into when we're stressed. Before anxiety happens, what is the first thing? We start to feel restless, and then next we start to feel agitated. So just consciously having a conversation in our minds and observing the feelings that are going on for us by naming them as they're happening. If you can name them in your mind, that's great. If you're in a place where you can write it down, that's even more powerful. As a beginner to self-awareness and mindfulness, this is one of the most powerful things you can do. For a week, take some notes in your phone and write down the feelings, use any adjectives that you can when you encounter stress. And you'll start to notice that you begin to catch it before it happens. So you'll begin to understand what tension is before it turns into heightened stress. And that's self-mastery, and that's changing our relationship to stress, anxiety, depression, all these things, is by beginning to understand ourselves and the thing that leads to the next moment. What is it for you? Understanding our patterns and being present enough, being self-aware enough to stop ourselves in our tracks before things blow up. So I do that a lot. Think of the worst case scenario and whatever happens won't be as bad. Yes, exactly. But what some people have told me, don't think of the negatives, think of the positives. Yeah, that's a really good point. There's a lot of contradiction now in the personal development space, in the stress management space. I think we're starting to come out of the positive thinking, the positive thinking ethos, because our society has become obsessed with just feeling good. So there is a time for positive thinking. We do want to have a positive mindset, but as I said before, we need to know where we are to go to where we want to be. We need to understand what's really happening for us instead of just covering it up. So if our goal is to become healthy and fit, and we're currently skipping gym, we're eating bad food, we're smoking, we're doing drugs, all these types of things. If we don't know where we are, if we don't know what's healthy, what's not, how are we ever going to get to that place of becoming fit? So we need some awareness. We need to acknowledge our current reality. And the same with the same with stress. So we need to acknowledge when we feel bad, and not only acknowledge it, we need to go deeper into it. Not by complaining to our friends, not by wallowing in it. We can't stay there for too long. But we have a range of emotions for a reason. It's like a orchestra. There's a bunch of different sounds, high and low, and they create a beautiful song altogether. And we have emotions as tools. We have them as guidelines for what's going on for us. So if we're feeling negative or bad about something, we can't just ignore it, because it means something is wrong. So if we're using these sort of outdated feel-good stress management modalities, and resolving that tension and allowing us to feel good for a moment, we never get to the root cause. We never get deeper. So we're never really experiencing a deep amount of joy. The only way we can go really high is to acknowledge what's in us that feels low. So yes, awareness precedes change. We need awareness, and by just being positive all the time, we never really gain self-awareness. So we need both. And these emotions, they're really useful tools. So don't feel bad for feeling bad. It's okay to be negative. It's necessary. We need it. The thing is, we just can't stay in it for too long. We can't sit in it for too long. So if you feel like you can't get out of it, if you're feeling overly negative for too long, that's when you need someone to guide you into self-awareness. You need a coach, or even a therapist. But the thing is, with talk therapy, we go into the negative feelings a lot. We go into what's wrong. So, one of the greatest tools we have now is we have coaches. We have people who can reflect and give you tools similar to a personal trainer that will help you with your body. A mindset coach or a performance coach is able to guide you through your mind, guide you through your awareness and reflect what's going on for you. So how to relax and trust life, that it gives me the best and I deserve in life. So this is a question about faith. How do we trust life? How do we relax into it? The number one thing I would recommend is daily meditation. And when I say meditation, it's just 15 minutes of sitting in silence. Not a guided meditation, but just sitting with yourself and observing your thoughts as they come through. Just 10 or 15 minutes is enough to do it daily. And to add to this, it's journaling. So when we journal, when we just begin to write our thoughts, especially post-meditation, we start to see what's coming up in our subconscious, especially when we don't filter ourselves. So we begin to see our patterns, begin to see our limiting beliefs. We see that voice in our head, and as we meditate, we begin to observe it. So these two powerful tools combined, journaling, just, unconscious writing, and meditation, open up our awareness. And the more we see the false voice of the ego, which we, observe while we're meditating and which we write out, the more we get to trust life. And by trusting life, I mean trusting, what's beyond the stress, what's beyond the limiting beliefs, what's beyond the voice. It's like there's a dirty window. We just need to clean the dirt off the window to see the light. And that's what we're doing with overcoming stress, with self-awareness, is we're just cleaning off all the limiting beliefs of the ego. Of course, they'll never go away. They're always there. We're just becoming aware of it so that the light comes through. And the more light that comes through as we unlayer our ego, our thoughts, our, monkey minds, our thinking minds, the more of the light comes through from, our soul, our inner knowing, whichever way that you want to look at it, the more of it comes through. And that's our happiness. The more we are able to be with those negative thoughts and feelings, the more we understand ourselves, the more self-awareness we gain, the more we open up to happiness. We don't need to chase it. We don't need to look for it. We just need to clean the dirt off the window. So if there aren't any questions, I think we've got about 5 more minutes. So if anyone has another question related to stress, even if it's a personal question, it might be useful for someone else. Otherwise, if you are watching the replay, you can contact me on Instagram. My handle is _mindset_daily, or you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Sacha Fedorovsky, Mindset Coach, and just send me a personal message. We can have a chat, and you'll be surprised how often you're asking the same question as other people are. So thanks again to the team at Happiness Aid for having me on, and the fantastic work that you're doing. Have a great night, and thanks for sharing this with me. Bye-bye.